Hey guys, Moneyman300 and back for another tips and tricks video, and this time we're doing some more tuning in depth and we're moving on to our roll bars or our anti-roll bars. And the car I took this time, we're back to the Class B Subaru BRZ on the Alps because this is a great place to demonstrate roll bars. They're used a lot and used to really help you through those longer sweeping speed turns, which tracks like Alps and Prague and things like that have a lot of. So it's not that it doesn't help in the other turns, but it helps the most in those kinds of turns. The type of tuning you want to do for these is it benefits you the most in these larger sweeping turns. So let's dive right into it here. Let's head in and take a quick look. This is the where I'm at with that, and what I'll do is I'll go through and demonstrate what happens if you soften the front, stiffen the front, and the same thing in the rear, and what each of those do. First of all, let's talk a little bit about what the roll bars do, and you can read the description here. It actually does a great job of depicting or explaining what the anti-sway or anti-roll bars do. Essentially, what you're looking for in a car is when you're in a turn like that, one of those sweeping turns, and the body rolls away from the turn, you're going to lose traction. So you use your anti-roll bars to tie your left and your right side together to help keep the car planted and hook up in that turn. So instead of rolling so far away, you tie those two sides together so that they roll together, and that your tires and your contact patch and everything, you get the most of it in there. So that's the basics behind it. What you really need to know is how do you set these up, and then how do you make adjustments off of them. So let's start off with, first things first, how do you get a default setup with your roll bars? What I normally do, there's a couple of different ways that I do it, and it depends on how I set up that build. But what I'll normally do is base it off of the changes that I make to the springs. So if I used my my base calculation, which if you watch the springs video or watch my base setup video, you know that a lot of times I'll use the weight distribution, a weight distribution method, and generally that's going to soften up the springs just a little bit. So what so when I soften up the springs, let's say I ended up softening up went from like 800 to 700 on the front. I will take that percentage, which is it's a little more than 10% alpha there. I'll take the same off the front roll bars so that they go down in unison with the springs. So if I took 20%, another method of doing the springs might be to take 20% off of each. I would also then take 20% off the front and the rear roll bars. That's one way to do it, is to make it a percentage the same as you did with your springs. So I may do that. The other way to do it is as I talked about with the springs, is just to center it up and come in there and put them in the midpoint for the most part. And a lot of times it depends on if I'm doing front wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or rear-wheel drive. So, and I'm not going to talk a lot about front-wheel drive just because I don't tune a lot of front-wheel drive cars. I don't really own very many, but probably somewhat similar to all-wheel drive in that they tend to understeer. So you're going to want to oversteer tune them. And what I mean by oversteer tuning is you'll have the front roll bars softer than your rear roll bar. So that's what I call oversteer tune to have the car oversteer a little bit. Now, in this case, this is a rear wheel drive car, and you're typically going to understeer tune a rear wheel drive car a little bit. So this might be closer to a starting point that I would have in a car like this, and this probably was about the starting point that I had in this one. So, and that would probably just about match what I had in my springs there, and it really does very closely anyway. So that's probably about where I started. And you can see that I had made some adjustments off of there based on what I did. So different ways that you can get to a starting point. So any one of those methods is okay, and they'll work. It's just as long as you know how you got to that, and then you know what adjustments to make off of that. So let's talk about when you make adjustments. So this is what I'd say a mid-turn adjustment is where your roll bar. So if your car is pushing or understeering at mid-turn and you can't quite get that car to turn, then what you want to do is to soften your front anti-roll bars. So you want to go to the left with those. You want to make them softer, and you want to, a couple increments at a time. I might go from like 21 to like 18, and then test it. Okay, is it turning in? Is it holding the turn better? Is it not pushing so much in that mid-turn area? If it is, great. If not, I might come in here and just keep softening it. If you go too far, you'll end up with an effect where you'll actually spin out or start to lose traction and oversteer in that turn. So there's a balance there, and at that point you want to start adjusting the rear. So go back to the adage of tune the end that's having the issue. If you're pushing, if the car's understeering, tune your front anti-roll bars. If you are oversteering in mid-turn, meaning you're losing the back end's getting skittish, tune your anti-roll bar, or your rear anti-roll bars, so you'll soften those. So just like I said there, if I was coming into a turn and I'm losing the back end in that turn, and I think my springs are pretty well dialed in, because that could be springs you could soften, but usually if it's mid-turn and you're not on the throttle, or you're at least not accelerating, you might be keeping a consistent throttle in a sweeping turn, then you can come in here and start to reduce, soften your rear anti-roll bars. That'll help you with that understeer and keep you set up. You go too far and you're going to start to push. So, there's this kind of ebb and flow between the two that you do. So what I'm going to do is let's demonstrate a couple of extremes here. And you're usually going one way or the other. Usually you're stiffening here and softening here, or softening here and stiffening here. Usually not taking them both the same direction, although you might when it's all said and done. But what I'm going to do is go in here and I'm going to put in a case that would be, if I were to do this, and I'm going to go 40 and 1. Now what this should do, this is crazy understeer tune. This should make it very difficult to turn. And I'm already out on the track, and I've ran the one lap. So we're going to go out here, and hopefully it doesn't make a liar out of me, because I didn't test this, but I've done it before on other cars. What this ends up getting me. And I may not be able to tell in this first turn. You see, there it is right there. It's already right there. Just it kind of pushed up, and I really had to let off. So we hit another turn here just to help illustrate the point a little bit. Right there, it's pushing out. Did it finally get there? I have no chance of making that one. I did let off the gas. I let off again there. So what I'm getting is a lot of understeer. You could probably see it in there, but I can tell you I can really feel it. So what we'll do next is we'll go the other way. So and these are experiments that are always good to do. These experiments of extremes really gives you a feel for, okay, what happens if I do some really crazy stuff with this? And you can feel what happens. Now you don't have to go straight 1 and 40 like this. You might, go a little less, but this will just give you an idea. So what this should be is really oversteer tuned, which means I probably will be losing the back end in a mid-turn situation. So let's see what we got here, especially down at the bottom of this. Down at the bottom of this hill here. Get down here. I can really feel it diving in there. Not bad though. There it goes. Whoa. I lose the back end a little bit there. Some of that's on me. Right there. Yeah, it's hard to drive now, I can tell you that. Right there again. So you just see I'm just losing traction. So, that's too much. Definitely having no problem steering as I steer into the wall there. But yeah, definitely. So there's the two extremes. One of them is just way oversteers, which is what I have now, and the other is way understeer. So let's put a normal setup back on this to something that I would feel a little bit more normal with. And let's go in here. As I said, I probably started with somewhere in the 21 and 17. Probably somewhere right in here. So let's see what that feels like. And my guess, since I had the front, it looks like down in that, I think it was around 15 or 16 when we hopped in here. I was probably getting some understeer and some push with it. So let's apply that. Go back in here and let's see how this feels compared to the other one. So we'll run up in here. This next turn is another good one. And after this little S here, that the last turn's a good place to get a feel for how you're turning. See, I can feel it. See, I don't know if you can see that, but when I hit the throttle a couple times right there, it wanted to steer right just a little bit, and that's what I'm looking for. I want that to stay hooked up and not try to steer to the right when I put a little bit of throttle on it. Feel it in this one too. It's not too bad. There's pushing up just a little bit there. I held it okay. It's not terrible, but I would like it to be able to turn in just a little bit better than that. And I'm going to check it in one more place here. The all-important. Let's see if I can hold this all the way down through. It's pretty good right there. I can live with that. So, and that's probably what I had before. And I made some adjustments just to make it a little easier. But I did not have to let off the throttle going into that one. So definitely, this is a very livable setup that I've got here. A little pushy. So what I'm going to do in here is just because I can kind of feel that little bit of push, I want to go in, and this is what I'm talking about here. So since I'm getting just a little bit of understeer in that mid turn, I want to take this back down. So I'm going to run this, and I'm actually just going to make it even. We'll go 1740 and 1740. So we'll do that real quick. Back out of there and zoom. Now what I want to make sure doesn't happen is I don't start to get oversteer with it. Feels okay so far, though. Not doing a lot of steering yet. So it's turning in pretty good here. I got through that turn nicely. And you know, if you've driven this track much, sometimes you can get a car that'll understeer a little bit. Whoa! I hit the guardrail there. Watch out for that. That doesn't happen very often. Get up here and now see, I'm hitting that throttle the same, and just kept diving down. In fact, I dove all the way down onto the strip. But I don't know if you could notice that, but definitely I felt the difference. You know, I tried to feather the throttle, and you could probably hear it there to see if it was going to push it all, and it really didn't. So, and this turn will tell me if I got any understeer at all in there. A little oversteer there at the end, but nothing I can't handle. So actually, that feels even better. So that's how you can tune that and get those really dialed in. This is a really important adjustment, and one of the first places that I go after the default setup. Springs usually, then roll bars, start to really fine tune with damping and other things from there. Alignment if I need to make changes based on that. So that's how you can a little bit more in depth on how you can do tuning on your roll bar. So hopefully you guys learned something from this. Post any questions you got down in the comments. Feel free. I'll definitely answer them. And we're going to end up with that. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys in the next one, which is going to be, we'll do damping in the next one. So some interesting stuff in that one as well. So we'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.